Here's today's session. And so now you know you're in the right place. Let's just get going. Uh, my company is Learning Paths, and we've been doing this learning path process, which is a way of designing and building training. In particular, it focuses on reducing time to proficiency. And I'll just show you some of the books that I've written over the last almost 20 years now that really talk about this process. And what I'm going to do in today's session is there's some things we do when we build learning paths where we're now starting to use AI instead of doing it all by hand, and just how much faster and easier. So it's more like, here's a real example of how to do instructional design and delivery using an AI product. And when I'm talking about AI, I'm really going to focus in on chatbots and not the whole world of AI. And I'm not going to talk about things like security. There's some technical things that uh, they're very unique to each company, and I don't want to get into that detail, but a lot of this is, there's a way that we used to do our design or script writing or storyboarding. Say, well, using a chatbot, we can take not only hours, days out of our timeline, we can do some things in an hour that used to take us a week to do. And I'll give you some ideas of how it works best. And and uh, and what I find is that this isn't really a challenge to replace anybody. This is going to say, I can do a whole lot more than I used to. I can expand my offerings because I've got all this help. And I also like to kind of describe a chatbot as, wouldn't it be nice if you had a super smart assistant who was always in a good mood? That's what the chatbot's like. It has endless patience. It's always pleasant. It will always redo for you and give you support, which is kind of nice because when you have a real life person, they have their good days and their bad days and think they're smarter than you. And you know, the chatbots can be a great help. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I really want to get into the technology piece of this, which I think is what everyone really wants. So we said we're going to talk about chatbots, and I just put this up. These are probably the most common ones that people have, and they're all really pretty good. Um, it's hard to say which one is best because the answer will be outdated by next week because they change and upgrade. I think in March, ChatGPT has had like 4 upgrades. So, well, what version are you talking about being better? I'm going to do mostly things in ChatGPT because that's the one I've been using and I know it really well. I do use some of the others. And one of the nice things about using more than one is you can have, if you're concerned about is something accurate or correct, or you kind of don't like how it's doing it, you can ask another chatbot to fix what the first one did. I use Perplexity a lot for that, where I'll go and say, I get this from ChatGPT. Is this really right? And it'll come and say, well, it's partly right, but these things are wrong, and I correct this. Or, yeah, this is really good. It's there. Here are 3 more suggestions. So you can use it that way as well. Um, I would say probably using 2 chatbots is the best thing to do. Have your primary one, and then have one that can check things or rewrite when you're not quite happy with it. Um, and again, it's very accommodating. If it'll come up where something will come out and say, that doesn't seem quite right. And I'll ask it, is that really right? And it'll say, well, I guess I made a mistake. It's really this other thing. And it'll be very pleasant about it. And, if you had an assistant and you challenged them on that, they would start growling. But so, uh, so that's okay with everyone. I'm going to really focus mostly in on ChatGPT today, but I can answer questions about some of the others. Um, Gemini used to be Bard, I think, and Copilot is becoming very, very popular if you've got clients because it's got some security things where it's integrated in the Microsoft Office suite, and so it eliminates some of the questions about where's my data going and keeping things more internal. But that's not my field of expertise. Next slide, and we're going to get into the actual program here, but I want to do this first. So I asked this question this morning, and as I'm just upgrading things, I say it's hard to find an expert because this things change so fast and they're so robust that it's hard to know everything about everything. So I asked ChatGPT, are you an expert on ChatGPT? And it says, absolutely. I know everything about ChatGPT. It's not going to tell you it doesn't, but it said, here's some things about what I'm expert in. And anytime you got a question about something, the best thing to do is just ask the chat bot, tell me about this. And if you don't think it's quite right, you ask a follow-up question. And I don't worry so much about how do I write the questions because I can ask follow-ups and he can have this dialogue with you. And so you don't have to worry so much. There's a lot of people who are going, here's the perfect prompt. Forget about that. Just ask it a question and be prepared if you don't like what you get to follow up. Or I say, give me more detail. You can even do things like, tell me more. Um, you know, this interests me. Tell me more about this. So I asked this question this morning. And then I asked a follow-up question. There are about 6 versions now of ChatGPT. And I said, well, there's a lot of versions here. If I'm doing instructional design, what is the best version for me? And this is what it told me. So I didn't write any of this. I'm just telling you exactly what it told me. Now I could take this question and take it over to Perplexity or Copilot and say, ChatGPT told me this. What do you think? And it will tell you what it thinks about what ChatGPT told me. And it may say, oh, this is perfect, or it might say, it's smoking something funny. You should have come to me first. So that's kind of how it works. So be prepared to have this dialogue, that you can have this ongoing conversation, keep asking for more, and it's not going to get mad at you. It's not going to get frustrated. You know, uh, if you ask someone the same question 1,000 times, they would be very, very annoyed. You can ask the chatbot the same question 1,000,000 times, and it will not get annoyed with you. It might even cheer you on. So, uh, let me just go to the next one. This is just kind of a summary slide about how the world has changed. So you remember, and Judy, I'm sure you remember this. We used to use those little bean people to do our PowerPoints. Well, that's gone. You can get the chatbots to give you, full AI animation on things. You can get ideas. You can really expand it. The graphic stuff is just really, really amazing. And there are other programs that do the graphics as well that you play with. Um, one of the ones that's real popular these days is Midjourney. Canva is really, really good. And we'll talk about Canva and generating things. And it goes beyond just uh, searching for a picture to use. It will actually create new pictures, new art. And that's really a big jump forward, which gets me to the point about copyrights. Stuff produced by a chatbot or AI is not copyrightable because it's coming from, a computer or whatever. And the only people who can hold a copyright are people. You have to be able to go into court and sue somebody to have a copyright. And copyrights, a chatbot can't go to court and it has no rights to be a person in court. And where this originally came from, there was some kind of lawsuit. And the question was about, if I had monkeys in a room and they typed and it came up with Shakespeare, could I copyright it? And said, well, no, you can't because monkeys can't go to court. Okay. Let me just stop there and say that was a lot of fast talking. Anyone's got a question so far? Are we on the right page with this? Anybody? Okay, no comments. So I'm saying it's perfect. I see someone's put something in the chat. Okay, I got to put the chat somewhere where I can see it. I have a terrible time following chat, but I'll do my best. Next page. So I asked ChatGPT the question, what are some of the ways you help me building learning paths? And I thought I would get 4 or 5 things, but I stopped it after 101. It said, these are the kinds of things, and I'll at some point I'll attach this to the chat and you can, or send it out and you can have this presentation. But these are things that it can work on. I'm not sure I know what even everything is, but that is a huge list of things. So, and the way you would work on it is say, well, let's just pick um, number 13, course outlines. So, well, I wonder how it would help, so ChatGPT can help me with course outlines. Well, what I would do is I could go in, so you can help me with course outlines. How would you do that? And then you could say, could you give me an example of that? If I wanted a different format, could you do that? And it'll show you how to do it. So not only does it answer the question, but it'll tell you how to do things. And you can ask it more and more questions to get it. So if I'm not quite sure how to do a course outline or what I need to type in, you say, I'm going to do a course outline. How can you help me? What do I need to give you? Those are the kind of questions. And all of a sudden, you're an expert in how to do it. Um, I want to show you something here on the industry trends in a second because I was just playing with a new feature and it's so robust that it's still working on it. Most of these things happen immediately, but there's some things around the research that are just brand new that are just really, really good. So I'm sure if you asked it a follow-up question, it would come up with another couple hundred of these. So that's why no one's really and really the application is what we really want. Is how do I do that? How do I do interactive quizzes? And normally when you get a piece of software that does interactive quizzes, it takes you a long time to figure it out. But with ChatGPT or Copilot, you say, how do I do or what kind of interactive quizzes can you do? How can I do them? Can you give me some examples? And it is really good coming up with examples, both generic examples or saying, I'm in the engineered metals industry. Give me an example that would fit my environment, and it can do that. And I will get into showing how to do that. So here's the what can I do? And I'm just always amazed at how much it can do. Uh, so here's just as an example of trying to get some help in writing some things. This is kind of where I started with it. And then when we do learning paths, we do these proficiency definitions. And people really, really struggle with it because it has to do with writing. And I've always found that people just have a terrible time with writing. So I said, well, can you help me write this? The key thing here is I had to explain to it, first of all, when I say proficiency, this is what I mean. When I say a proficiency statement, this is what it has to look like. And it says, okay. And so, this is not a proficiency statement. This was about, I have to back up here. This is before that, where we're going to actually do a research um, to find out what proficiency is. And I said to it, here, let's say we're going to do a proficiency statement around people who sell leisure travel. And here's what proficiency means, like I said before. And, can you give me, say, 15 questions that I can now go out and survey with people or sit down and interview with them? And so these are the actual questions that came up with. And I thought these were really good questions. But the difference is if I sat down to write this, it would totally take me 15 or 20 minutes or an hour to write these questions. Because I got to think, this is about 1 minute worth of work for it. And now I can go back and say, okay, I like this one, but can you rewrite this other one? Or, I see you've got this divided into like 3 sections. Can I get a section on air travel? And it'll write more questions. Say, I like the 15 you got here, but can you give me 10 more? And it'll just keep spitting them out. But if you take a look at some of those questions that are coming back here, I think it's really pretty good. And I can tweak them. So one of the things you can do is you can use chatbots to write things and then you rewrite them or evaluate them. That's usually where a lot of people do it. You want to always check that, it's all going to fit. But, you can do this several times and say, oh, I told you this about leisure travel agents. That's more general. Could you do those people who specialize in selling cruises? And they'll say, okay, here's the questions for those people. Now, if you had a different industry, it could do that, and it's very good at that. Not only does it know the generics, but it's got access to all the information about leisure travel and selling cruises, and so it can immediately kind of spit this stuff out. Any questions about this? I know I started in one direction and went off in a deep end a little bit, but helping for that initial needs analysis questions. You also could say, I've written these questions for my needs analysis. Can you evaluate it for me? Will you make some suggestions how to make it better? And it's very good at that, uh, of taking it and doing that. And again, you could take it over to a different chat bot and say, ChatGPT gave me these 15 questions, and I think it was smoking something funny. What do you think about these 15? Or how would you rewrite them? And so you could do iterations. And the fact that I'm doing this all in a matter of, 15, 20 minutes, it's not a big burden. This could be a whole week's worth of work for some people. I know I get some people who are new in the business, and this could be a whole week's worth of work. And ChatGPT is now doing it. And so, when I said before, where it really is of use is that I could do more needs analysis uh, than I do now because I don't need to sit there and do everything by hand. It's like instead of writing everything out by hand, we started using typewriters than the computer. Well, you didn't do less work. You just did your work a whole lot better. Okay. So let me flip ahead. By the way, when I did the last one, I just stayed on with people if they had more things they wanted to discuss. So if we go past the hour and you've got more things, I'll stay and work with you. That's fine. Because I tend to ramble on a little bit. The next thing, is what happens when you after you've done your interviews, and now you got to sit down and evaluate what everybody said. And this one was really surprising to me the first time I did it. What I had done is I had taken my questions and I had written notes after each interview. I usually type them in, but I could have done it in handwriting. I'll show you that. But I take notes. And so I've got like 20 interviews with all these notes. And I attached it for ChatGPT and say, okay, will you evaluate this for me? Okay, will you and it can do this kind of evaluation. It said, okay, here's where everybody agrees, here's where everybody disagrees, here's your opportunities for improvement. Here's where you detract. Whatever I wanted, it would do that kind of evaluation of all 20 interviews, all at the same time in a few minutes. And that is, like weeks worth of work. But it's very good at that. And what happened the first time I did it, I said the client actually directed me, said, just run it through ChatGPT and see what it comes up with. And I did it one time and I showed it back to the client and said, now I can take and do a better evaluation or in depth. It says, no, this is perfect. I was sitting on those calls with you, and this is exactly what people said. He said, I'm just going to run with it because it was so close to what he had heard as well. When we do a lot of our interviews, we do them by phone and I take notes, but it is very good at evaluating the research that you do. And we can talk a little bit about how you get stuff into ChatGPT. But this was very surprising. And this is one of those things that takes a lot of time to write. And you actually can get it so, and I would like your output in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. It says, okay. They might say, do you have a template for it? And I can give it the template and say, okay, I'll put it in your template. It's just amazing how that works. And again, if you don't know how to do it or you forget what I said, just ask it, how would I do that? How would I put a research report into a PowerPoint template, and it'll give you step-by-step directions. And if something isn't clear, you say, make this more clear for me. So your willingness to ask questions is how you learn how to use this thing. Okay, this is for the people who've been around the longest that like to handwrite everything. But this amazed me. On the left is some handwriting from my father's book, who's now 104 years old, and he was a doctor. And so you look at the quality of his handwriting. Well, it's a doctor's handwriting. I said, will you put this into text that I can use? And over on the right-hand side is that translated into text. So if you did those research and it's all handwritten notes, it would take your handwritten notes and I'll write them all up and use that. And it's just instantaneously. I look at that thing for an hour and I can't make out half those words. But it was, so the ability here is just unbelievable. Bob, you take notes by hand still, or?
No, I use a note taker. I
Okay.
use Read AI usually, or
Okay.
Otter.
You're just too sophisticated for this. Okay.
Well, where I fall down is in normal conversation. Um, I tend to rely on some of these things, and then if I don't have it, I have to handwrite again.
Well, there is a function in, and I won't go into it much, with the fact that now ChatGPT has an audio feature where it can
Mhm.
sit in on a meeting and then takes and tell you what the themes of the meeting were, or take notes for you and everything. So you can go from audio to text as well. And again, I'm not going to teach you how to do everything because you just have to ask it. Okay. Uh, I'm going to go skip through a little bit of this. Here's when I was talking about writing those statements. And this is where people have trouble writing things like this in a particular format. Let's say you wanted learning objectives and you need to write them a certain way. And you ask your helpers or your clients to write them and it comes up with garbage. Okay. Uh, this is the kind of statements it came up with. Okay. And I had to clarify it's only one sentence. It's got to have these elements to it. And it was really, really good. Because a lot of the challenge in writing this with like a team is you spend a lot of time writing and rewriting things. And sometimes it's more than just to get the content right, it's to get the style right and everything. And what I like to do, instead of doing a lot of brainstorming from blank sheets of paper with people, well, here comes Sue. All right. Welcome, Sue. Uh, what I like to do is give people a draft where I do my research. I draft out, here are the statements, and then go to the team and say, what do you think about these? And let them rewrite and react. And there's people are much better at reacting. If I said, what do you think of these statements? I get more useful information from you than if I said, okay, create those statements. Because I say create those statements, we're going to spend a lot of time fixing them. So as you do your design documents, you know, have it help you draft objectives if you're using objectives or whatever you do in your design, and then have that reviewed or you review it. Um, and even if you're good at it and you know it well, it takes a while to write those things. And we're talking about 10 seconds to write a bunch of objectives. You know, make it look like you worked hard and let the chat bot do it for you. Okay. So you'll find this so that you can do a lot with your upfront research and your needs analysis of, and you can even get to the point where, it could help you start designing things. And I want to show you that more live. Um, uh, I want to switch over for a second and we'll come back to this. Um, because I talked about Canva, and I haven't really done much on Canva in presentations in the past, but I've been doing a lot of things, in particular making small videos. But Canva is a very powerful tool for doing things like small videos, presentations, um, and here, I kind of say, what are the things in Canva you can do that'll help me build training? And you can see it is a lot of stuff. And well, Canva isn't always that great in directions on how to do things. You can ask ChatGPT how to do this stuff. So if I was going to do a storyboard um, in Canva, how would I do it? I could get more directions that way. But just about anything you want to do graphically, both, in pictures and in video, Canva is going to help you. And one of the things that's really nice about Canva and why it kind of goes beyond things like PowerPoint is that people have been writing apps for Canva. And there are a whole bunch of apps that will do just about anything you can think of. For example, um, if you want to do voiceovers, or if you want to record your voice and have the voiceover in your voice, or if you want to do um, an animation of yourself and have it run around and talk, those are the kinds of things that these other apps will do. And it's just mind-boggling how much of it is. But so it's currently so there's about 200 or more of these. And the nice thing about each one of them is that there is a YouTube video that will show you how to do every last one of these things. That includes what's going on in the chat bot. If you really get confused, you just go over to YouTube and say, you know, how do I do this? Or, give me a video on that. And not only will you find one person doing it, you'll find 10 people doing it. And you eventually find someone who fits the way you learn that can give you instructions on things. But there is a video for everything. And it's not just from, Canva, it's from all the users. And that's what's really important. I mean, I use YouTube like all day long to get the explanations on things and uh, just a really wonderful spot. Um, has anyone here used Canva before?
I have not.
You have not? Okay.
No,
I've been going back and forth whether I want to get it, and then of course, do I want to do the paid version?
Yeah. Where the paid version comes in a lot is uh, getting access to some things and doing some of the more advanced video stuff. I would play around with the free version. And the other thing is the logo stuff. I guess it puts a watermark on it. Uh, and I found initially it was a little bit kind of daunting because there was so much. But once I got into it, it's just a breeze to use. Okay. So with that said, let's go to the real stuff. And I want to get out of my PowerPoint here and put my screen up. And I was going back and forth with Sue Merkins, who's on the phone here, and I've been doing a lot of little tiny videos in Canva. And if I get around to it here, I can put a note. Um, this is my YouTube channel, and if you want to just go to it, my YouTube channel is Front Lawn. If you type in Front Lawn, you can get to this, and these are all little videos that I've done mostly in Canva on a variety of topics. And we're doing more and more of these things as you're doing your micro learning. And I can get into a little bit of how you kind of build these things because it's very, very simple. And as long as it's not, you need a professional actors and you're doing a whole big production, you can do YouTube quality videos endlessly and just in 10, 15, 30 minutes rather than days. So going to ChatGPT, I think it's finally finished here with this. I want to move this over here. Um, I was looking today at, what are some new features? And this gets at this idea of research. In the new version 4.5, they have a thing called deep research. And not only will it give you a quick answer, it'll go out and really look at things. And just typed in, tell me about micro learning. And it started to do research. And way over on the right here, let me go up to the top here. It started telling me where it was looking at things. And it says, okay, now I'm reading this from this site. And now I'm reading from this book. And it goes through, and it went through about, boy, I got to say at least 200 sources, and then came up with this write-up about um, micro learning. Let me go back to the top here. So actually, you're going to do a presentation on micro learning. Uh, this is from the research that it did. And if you see in these little areas here, it'll show you where it's getting some of its sources, and it's not taking things word for word. It's doing its own writing. But you see where it's using all these sources. And here it's just talking about all the things about microlearning that he had read, and it's kind of doing a synopsis of what's out there. Now I could ask it to go back and do a second look at any one of these things in more detail and get to the next level of application. And again, this is not copyrighted stuff anymore. This stuff you can use, you can paste it into your presentations, uh, and it can do all output of things. But just look at this thing. It probably took 10 minutes to do all this research, but it's really a lot of stuff. And I was just really surprised. And it's nice and well organized. So if you've got a new topic that you're going to build a program for, you can do some deep research now on that topic, or go to the next level and do some research at that level, or the next level lower. And it's kind of like going down the rabbit hole where you say, okay, tell me in general what this is about. Okay, I see this item. Tell me more about that. And it goes down, tells you, then you say, okay, I see this other one. Tell me about that. And it gets more and more and deeper and deeper and deeper until you get this massive picture of things. But it's doing it, instead of going to the library like we used to do and taking a week to do research, it's going to give you the stuff in 10, 15 minutes. And then, of course, you got to read it all. So let me just stop there. I've been showing a lot of stuff here. Any quick comments or thoughts? Sue, welcome. Any quick comments from you, Sue?
No, I'm good. This is good information, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, this deep research is brand new stuff. So since last time. So you can see in doing your instructional design and building, I can learn about just about anything. I don't need to buy 10 books on the subject. It will go and do that research for you and give you a synopsis. And then if it doesn't seem deep enough, you can ask it for more and more and more. And more, these chatbots are getting really good at labeling where stuff is coming from. Where's it getting its information? Over here on the right was kind of interesting. It was doing this, it was going along, which is, okay, I'm now reading this. I'm now reading Learning World. Now I'm reading Valamis. I'm now going to this other, and it's just fascinating. Okay. I'm going to keep track of time here because I want to make sure I get over to the video stuff in time. But let's talk about just some of the real basic things you can do. You can ask it to, give you designs for things. And so I'm just going to do a very basic quick example, but you can do it at a deeper level for things. So give me a design for a 1 hour webinar on microlearning. I'm just doing this as a generic topic. And let's see what it comes up with. And you can see how fast it works. Okay. And so here it's come up with a kind of an outline. I could say so like what interactive exercises could we do? And one of the things that's happening with ChatGPT and the other chatbots is once you start a conversation, it remembers what you're talking about. So you don't have to rewrite everything each time. It says, okay, so when I say, what interact, it knows I'm talking about that webinar. And so let's see what it comes up with. So not only did it give me one activity, it gave me, how many is going to give me? And you can specify how many you want. So there he gives 5, which is kind of typical. But you can say, give me 10. Or say, those 5 were good, give me 5 more. Or, this activity on brainstorming, can you modify it so, it works for a larger group? Or, some other kinds of things, and uh, it will rewrite it for that. You could say, rewrite it so that it's more step-by-step instructions. So it's outputting it in a certain way. Uh, take the instructions from activity 5 and make them more detailed step by step. And so that's a lot more detailed. This is all about that one activity now. It's now broken it down into I don't know how many steps it's going to be. Okay. So it took and gave you 8 very specific steps with a goal and the actions, and however you want to write these things, it can rewrite them. And you also could do the thing where you say, this is my formula or this is the way I write an instructional design. It looks like this. I want you to use this style, and it will copy the way you do things. So, I do it all as a text block, or I use numbers, or, instead of goal, action, and something, I do it objective and step, and it will duplicate it that way. Now, this gets to the point of how do you get information into a chatbot? Because I'm sure that's a question you have. You see, you give me examples and templates and all that. How do I do that? Well, this little plus sign down here is how you manually upload things. If I have and it will take almost all of the document formats you currently use, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and a bunch of others. In fact, you can actually ask it which ones it uses, and you just attach it, and it'll read that, and then work from that and say, okay, here's the job description for the travel agent. Use this to write proficiency statements, and you attach the job description. Here's my research notes. Use that to create a learning activity.
So, quick question, Steve.
Yes,
Can it be any file types then? I'm guessing yes.
well, see, you've done the perfect thing. What file types can I upload? This is how you remember to do things. Just ask it. It'll tell you. Okay, that's you're limited to those 20 or so file types. I can add a video, I can add audio. It doesn't, just and really what's there is all the common things. Okay. There are also ways to take things from internal databases. That requires you need to get the IT department involved to figure out how to do that. But it can take, you know, proprietary stuff or stuff from other places or take it electronically.
So, when you log in, like tomorrow to
Yeah,
this, will it have saved your previous conversations, or
I'm glad
do
you
you
asked that
have
question.
to?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
acting like
and
ChatGPT.
maybe you covered this because I had came in
Yeah,
late, so
yeah.
sorry if you already covered
No,
this.
no, no, no. That's perfect. It's a perfect time to ask that question. If you
Okay.
look over on the left-hand side here, it's tracking all the conversations that we've had.
Ah, I just noticed that. Yeah.
Okay. And so I don't know how many days, it's going back 30 days or so. You can click on that and it'll start from there. So every time you log in new, it creates a new one.
Okay.
Or
Cool.
you do a new project. And so it remembers everything you're talking about in that particular chat. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh, a couple of other things, and I want to get over to Canva with you guys because we're running towards the end of the hour here. Hopefully, you guys uh, can stay on for this. Let me just do this real quickly. Um, it is really good at doing things like role plays. In fact, this is a newer feature, and I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to have you experiment with it. But if you go to the voice mode, okay, what the voice mode allows you to do is um, you can role play with ChatGPT. And you can actually put it into your design. It's still loading up here a little bit. Um, Sometimes during the day it's a little slower. Hello, ChatGPT. Hello. But it can assume the customer or be the
Yep, you
salesperson.
can totally role play with ChatGPT, and it can be a great interactive piece in your webinar design too. For example, you could say, let's watch how ChatGPT can act as a learner going through a micro-learning module, or as a manager coaching an employee using micro-learning tips. Then you could type in a prompt live, like act as a manager giving a 1-minute coaching tip on how to run better meetings. And boom, ChatGPT responds instantly with a mini lesson. Want help script?
Okay, it did that because I was talking and it kind of heard what I was saying to you. But there you have it. Uh, for questions, how do I use the deep research? Okay. I found it has a little trouble when I'm on Zoom and doing this. So I'm going to get out of there, but um, just going to go back. Um, and I haven't played with that, but it will actually live role play with you. And you actually could do an assignment. Go role play with ChatGPT, this role play. Um, you know, it'll do it 15 times with you if you want. It doesn't get tired of, when you do them live, they only want to do it once, but it'll do many times. Uh, you know, when you do role plays, you a lot of times need to do, and this is the last thing, I'll go over to Canva. Uh, Give me a customer profile. Oh, can't type today. A sales call with a travel agent. and it just instantly pops out customer profiles. And every time you set up a role play, you got to do customer profiles or salesperson profiles. It will do it just real quick like that, and usually in more detail than you normally would have done. And you can ask it to do this in paragraph form or in more depth. You can ask it to structure your role plays. And then you can use the same thing for creating a storyboard. So let me just stop there, and I want to get you into Canva here. And I said, I'll stay on to do more if you guys want to. Um, Anything you need me to cover on ChatGPT before we zip over?
I was just going to ask Steve, can you download the information?
From here,
Yeah,
if you ask it to output it in a file, you can download it.
okay,
You also can copy and paste things.
okay,
But if it creates a file for you, and for example, you can have it do a sales thing in Excel, and it'll create an Excel file, and then you download the Excel file. So absolutely. Or if you want to have do a PowerPoint, it'll create it in a PowerPoint, and then you can just download it. And what'll happen is they'll be right at the end, click here to download. Or you'll see the actual file. You click on it, and it'll download it.
okay, thank you.
And I'm going to reinforce this for the last time now. If you can't remember what I just said or you don't like, it doesn't work, just ask it, how do I download a file? Or can I, and then how do I? Those are the kinds of things. So let me go over to Canva.
Could you just copy the text and paste it into Word or something like that?
Oh, absolutely.
No, too? Okay, good.
Oh, no, I do that all the time. You just go like this,
Yeah.
go copy, paste, and it's over there.
Okay.
Or you can say, now download this in a Word file.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. It works both ways. Very flexible. So let me go over to Canva. And Canva works in a very similar way, where it does projects and it remembers your projects, and you can go back and you can work on them. And I'm going to give you just a piece of one here that I did yesterday. And just to set it up, I wanted to do a YouTube post, and the concept was, people talk about micro learning, and then you say, well, what's smaller than that? Well, there's nano learning and there's pico learning, and so I did a funny thing. I said, what's even smaller than that? But just show you what this looks like. Okay. What you end up producing here, and this looks like a lot of other things. First of all, I created a script. And I did this script in ChatGPT. And I just said, give me a script, and let me just see if I can find it. I'll just take you through this process because it's really kind of cool. Okay. Well, let me see if this is where it was. Yeah. Okay. That always were tags for my video. Well, this is kind of what the script looked like. It came out with all sorts of thoughts about, visuals and all that. And I said, just give me the script. I know where I can find this. And then I took the script from here and I said, give me a script that does these things. And then I went over to a program that I like, and there's a lot of these, and you can even do it in Canva. It's a program called 11 Labs. Okay. And I pasted in to 11 Labs my script. And when you're in 11 Labs or the other ones, I use one called Speechlo at times. It'll give you a whole menu of potential speakers. And you pick out your speaker. And the one we used was Brian.
The thing always happens that you really believe in, and the
Okay.
belief in a thing makes it happen.
And
The
I
thing
said,
always happens that you really believe in.
And then I said, generate the script. And so Brian then reads the script. And I'll show you, you'll see it on the other side. Some of these are really, really good. Where it's hard to tell that it's AI. Others, sometimes it's the voice you recognize from YouTube videos. But you can do male, female with accents or whatever, and you find one you like. And then you go over to Canva. So, and there are a lot of text-to-speech programs. And there is one built into Canva as well. And there's a way of having it model your voice to read it as well. So this whole idea of speech to text, it's real common. And when you think of all the trouble you'd go through to get a professional talent and coach them and get them to want to do it over and over again, you go, this is easier. And so I uploaded it. And there's just a simple, upload command. Okay. And you can see that goes to my desktop, and there's the 11 Labs file. And then I just put it down here, and this purple line is the narration line. And then what it does is it allows you to create as many frames or pages as you like, where you can drop in a visual. Okay. And the visuals can come from a lot of places. And they can be either, like a picture, an animation, or a video. And it has a lot of them in store. So if I go over to elements over here, these are just the ones that are, let's see if I wanted to do some video. These are all little video things. And I can search it by topic, and it might be there. If not, maybe I need to go out to the internet to something like Pixabay and find something. It also has a feature here under Magic Media where it will try and create a video for you. It's fairly limited, but it will do that. There are other programs and apps that will create, AI video or AI pictures. Sometimes I go to ChatGPT. Oh, I got a chat thing here. Yeah, Cindy's leaving. I go over to ChatGPT and ask it to give me a visual. So going backwards again, the ChatGPT, I can say, give me a image, an image of a class doing micro learning or whatever I want to do. And it will create an image. And this is a brand new, it's not taking it from anywhere, it's actually drawing something. And it can do it in all sorts of different styles. It seems to be a little slow today. I think there's some days it gets slow. It's a program called DALL-E. Let's see, that'll work better. All right, it's taking a minute. So we'll come back to that. So we'll go back to Canva. So I can have ChatGPT create pictures and put it into here. All we do is upload it. And then you just drag it from the upload onto the storyboard. You can see there's a storyboard. And so when I put it together, and see, I can add text on top. I can add captions if I want. And I'll just give you a few seconds of this.
Microlearning is incredibly popular, offering a way to break down learning into bite-sized pieces that are easy to digest. But did you know that in the world of measurements, things can get even smaller? While most people are familiar with terms like nano and pico, the international system of units actually goes way beyond that, with 4 even smaller measures. First up, we have micro. That's 10 to the minus 6, or 1 millionth. It's commonly used in technology and, of course, in the term micro-learning. Next is nano, which is 10 to the minus 9, or 1 billionth. Nano is everywhere these days, especially in the world of nanotechnology. Then there's pico, that's 10 to the minus 12, or 1 trillionth. Pico might sound small, but it's used in fields like particle physics, where precision is key. But we're not stopping there. The next level is femto, which is 10 to the minus 15, or 1 quadrillionth. It's often used to measure incredibly short time spans, like femtoseconds, 1 quadrillionth of a second. After that, we have atto, 10 to the minus 18, or 1 quintillionth. This one's mostly seen in areas like atomic measurements. Then things really start to get tiny. Zepto, 10 to the minus 21, is used for phenomena that are incredibly small. And finally, the smallest measurement of all, yocto, that's 10 to the minus 24, or 1 septillionth. This is the extreme end of measurements used in advanced physics and quantum mechanics. Each of these terms helps scientists and researchers to measure things with mind-boggling precision. Whether it's breaking down learning into micro pieces or breaking down the universe into the tiniest units, the ability to measure, understand, and work with the world in ever smaller ways is one of the true wonders of science and technology. Which of these measures best fits the attention span of your audience?
Okay, so all of those little videos are in the Canva library. So I didn't have to create anything. I didn't even have to go out and search for anything. But you can go out and search. So when you think about it, you know, if I wanted to do a bunch of small videos, it doesn't become a big deal. This video probably took me 40 minutes to do, you know, and some was just me playing around. Then what I can do is I upload them to my YouTube page, my YouTube channel, and you can see here's all the different ones that I've done over time. There's just a bunch and you can have access to this if you just go to YouTube and type in front lawn. It'll take you to my channel. And there's a lot of other things there as well. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to go back to my Zoom over here. Okay. Oh, it's over here. And I am going to stop the share, stop the recording.